This term we've been discussing the Tattvartha Sutra, and just to recap, we started off looking at the first chapter. Sandeep discussed about the faith, Samyak Darshan, and then Ketan Bhai has been talking about the types of knowledge. Now, if you look at Tattvartha Sutra, from my point of view, I think it's a very scientific, analytical and a methodical book, text. And if you go through the entire book in sequence, I'll actually explain to you why I feel that it's supposed to be, although it's a very, spirituality is a very abstract notion, but the text in itself is being done in a very methodical and analytical way. Now let's see, for example, if you went to an MBA school, people doing finance courses, or people who are strategic consultants, management consultants, they sometimes use quite a few tools to make their decisions and planning. So let's just see what kind of things, like for example, so if people are let's look at the diagram on the top left, Ishikawa fishbone diagram. Many people actually use this kind of tools and saying, okay, if you've got a factory or if you've got some kind of problems in whatever industry you're working in any business, then on the sort of top left, you'll say, what's the problem? What is this? There's something which I'm trying to do. Increase productivity? Am I trying to increase revenues? Am I trying to decrease? So that's the concept which you want to look on the left. Then you'll get a group of people who are involved with this process and saying that we are trying to address this problem. What are the root causes? How can we increase the productivity? Then say, maybe we have to do number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So if you look at those green boxes on the top and the bottom, that's trying to say that these are the 6 or 7 different things which will increase the productivity or increase sales or whatever the issue is. And then again within those same box, those other side boxes, you can also then break it down further. How is it that I can look into that? So it's almost like a brainstorming session. So that's one tool which people would be using to management consultants, strategic consultants, CEOs of companies. Now, if you've got so many issues trying to address that one single problem, most companies will say, we don't have the time, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources to do all of that. No one can say that we cannot address all those issues to solve this problem here. Then comes Pareto. Pareto actually comes up and says that, he comes up with a very simple rule of thumb rule, 20-80. And what he's saying is this 20-80 rule is that if you focus on 20% of whatever the factor is, you will solve 80% of your problem or whatever the issue is. So let's example that on the top, if you look at this, so this is the issue here. And these are all the different factors which will cause it. So let's say that this is what we're trying to address, and there are 10 different issues which will help to achieve this objective here. But rather than working on all 10 of them, he says, why don't you just focus on 2 or 3 of the main ones? So 20 to 30%. If you've got 10 issues you can work on, let's work on, and you will actually achieve 80% of the objective which you're trying to achieve here. So that's what Pareto is saying, 20-80 rule. So these are kind of some of the rules which Pareto has suggested. Then you've got Michael Porter, his 5 forces analysis. So what Michael Porter, he was actually a Harvard professor, and he said that, for example, everyone's got some phone, Samsung phone, mobile phone. Now let's say that you actually want to create an industry and saying that I want to create another new phone. And I actually want to create a phone and actually want to go overseas. So then Michael Porter then comes up with different areas. He says, okay, if you want to do that, let's think about it. What are the threat of competitors? What is the threat of suppliers? Who are the existing people in the markets? And he comes up with all these kind of 5 boxes to think about and then make a decision. Do I really want to go ahead and go into another area and do what you want to achieve? The other kind of tool which people use is pest analysis. So in a similar way, say you want to now say I want to now create a new mobile phone and I want to enter the Indian market. You'll say, what are the political issues in that country here? Is the political environment conducive for me to go to India? What are the economic aspects there? What's the interest rate environment there? If I wanted to borrow some funds, so what's the economic environment there? What is the social status there? So for example, if people wanted to set up call centers there, people have different accents in India. Do you think it's going to be worthwhile for me to set up a call center there? do I have a lot of skilled force, the social factors there. So these are, and then technological analysis. If I want to do R&D, do I have a very strong workforce in that particular country which will enable me to sort of go there. So these are kind of different tools which you will be using to say, do I really want to go overseas? And then again, we have got here Ketan, who himself has written a book, and he's got this RACI chart. So if you got a lot of people, in any kind of project, you try to see all the different kind of factors there, and then break it down between who is responsible for this particular task, who is accountable, who is consulted, who is informed, and then you come up with this kind of matrix. And all these kind of tools to be used for your project planning, for your management consultants, for all the kind of executives, and these are kind of very sort of analytical, methodical tools which have been used. Now, how does this relate to Tattvartha Sutra? Now, if you look at it, Tattvartha Sutra is been talking about the 9 tattvas. So again, as you can see, it's been going to be talking about Jeev, Ajeev, and then it's a lot of classifications. What is Jeev? And then there are different factors given there. Then, if you look at similar to the fishbone diagram, how does Tattvartha Sutra start? Tattvartha Sutra starts the whole book by saying, what's the objective of this book? How can I achieve moksha? So that is really the objective, what it's trying to get to. And then, how do I achieve moksha? Then he says, you actually need Samyak Darshan Charitra. So you've got those 3 things in the green boxes there, Samyak Darshan Charitra. And then, the first chapter says, well, for Samyak Darshan, the first few verses talked about Samyak Darshan. Then it comes to Samyak Jnana, and then he says, well, for Samyak Jnana, there are 5 types of knowledge. And then you can then go to all the different, and then Samyak Charitra as we go along for the next chapters. So as you can see, it's very methodical, analytical approach which the book has. As we go along through the book, you will then see, for example, influx of karma is coming us. So what are the ways of how karma comes in? And then he says that, karma comes in through all these different 5 factors there. That you've got Kashai, you've got Pramad, you've got Avirat. So these are all these kind of different factors which how karma can comes in. If you think of it, there are lots of different ways karmas can bind to our souls. But as you can see that they're really factored us into 5 key areas. This is if you focus on these 5 key areas, you will then start stopping the influx of karma coming in. Similar to the pest analysis, if you look at it, Kashais, we've got many Kashais, we've got many passions, we've got many vices. But he says, if you focus on these 4 of them, you will almost, even like Pareto, you focus on these 4 main Kashais, you almost achieve 80% of your objective. So you can say that, these are all the different vices I've got, but let's focus on the key ones here. Similar to this kind of charts, as you can see, as you go further down to the text, it talks about different types of karma. The ghati karmas, aghati karmas. What are the ghati karmas? Then there's different classifications. And then as you can see that it comes up with a whole list of different categories of karmas in different areas. So the purpose of this is to show that it's a very scientific, a very methodical text, and as you go through all the different chapters. So now one thing is that we started off last week by Ketan talking about Matignan. And Matignan, what he summarized in a nutshell is that Matignan is the knowledge gained by your mind and your senses. So you've got a spectrum. You could either use your mind only, or you could use your senses only, or in many instances it's a fuzzy, sometimes mind, sometimes knowledge. So, and that's how we gain some knowledge. But if you now look at spirituality, there are so many factors which we cannot use our mind or we cannot use our senses. Karma, moksha, talking about the Jain universe, Devlok, hell. Who's seen it? None of us have experienced that, or we can recollect all that. So it's a very abstract notion. And so how are we then supposed to gain the knowledge of these kind of entities? The scripture says they are metaphysical entities. Metaphysical means they are real entities, but they are beyond our imagination. It's beyond our mind and senses. So we now need to understand that what knowledge, how can we gain the knowledge of these abstract notions? And that now leads on to the topic of this which you're going to go through. So now it leads from Matignan to Shrutjnana and all the other kinds of knowledge. So now we're coming up to Shrutjnana. Now, Shrutjnana, let's look at Shrutjnana. Now, how many people in the audience actually knows Gujarati, can read or write Gujarati? So almost everyone, or Hindi, not even Gujarati, but even Hindi for that matter. So let's try to see that. Let's imagine if someone gave you this slok here, and can we, as detectives, try to decipher? I mean, I'm not even an expert of Sanskrit, but sometimes just with our common knowledge of Gujarati, we can start understanding what are these sutras trying to say. So the first one says Shrutam. So you can say Shrutam Mati Purva. So you can see, so that's Shrutam Mati Purva. So that's Shrutam Mati Purva Dvaya Neka Dvadash Bhedam. So Dvadash Bhedam. So Shrutam means we are talking about the Shrutjnana. Mati Purva, we'll come to that. Dvanek, Dvadash. Anyone can guess what Dvadash means? Dvadash?
20. 2 days?
Close, yeah, good, close. Dvadash. Dash means 10. And Dva means Do means 2. So 2 and 10 makes it 12. So there's something in this verse about 12. Something to do with scriptures, Dvadash and Bhedam. Okay? So, Mati Purva. So, Shrut is knowledge having Mati as its cause. So, for you to get Shrutjnana, for you to get scriptural knowledge, you do need Mati Gnan. So, you do need mind and you need senses. Without that, you cannot have Shrutjnana. So, Shrut is knowledge having Mati as its cause. So, only after you have Mati Gnan can you then start having Shrutjnana. So, Mati Purva. Now, Shrut again comes from the word suno. Aapne Gujarati mein suno. So means to listen, to hear. So that's the root of the word Shrutam. So it denotes knowledge gained by oral tradition. People used to agam, you sort of say to one to other, or more recently, as we now believe, by studying the texts. So Shrutjnana, in a nutshell, means articulate knowledge, and it's in the domain of words and symbols. And it's very important that we'll come to that symbols, also symbols. Now, what does words mean? Words, આપણે ગુજરાતીમાં words નહીં કીધું, what do you call words? Akshar. And what does akshar mean? Shay. What does shay mean? Shay means to destroy. So what does akshay mean? Indestructible. So words, the word akshar means, if you break it down, kshay means to destroy, and akshar means something which cannot be destroyed. So language is something which cannot be destroyed. No matter how much time passes through, language is something which will be modified. So its knowledge, the words, alphabets and letters, it's always going to be there. Bhagwan Mahavir used to say some things, it used to be either Prakrit or Ardhamagdi or Sanskrit. Yeah, it's sort of evolved. We are now sort of using Gujarati, Hindi, English, but whatever it is, the words and the communicative knowledge is permanent. It's indestructible. No matter how much the time cycle moves through, the concept of language is always going to be there. So akshar means something which is indestructible. And words, according to the kind of the Jain definition, means that even in all languages, words have got two parts. One is consonants and one is the vowels. So A, E, I, O, U is the vowels, and consonants are all the other letters of the alphabets. Similarly in Gujarati and Sanskrit. Symbols. Look at symbols. Egyptian hieroglyphics. Again, those are symbols that they used to communicate information in those times, the Egyptians. So, although it was not in terms of this, the diagrams used to depict something. It used to communicate with one another. So, two quotes here. In the physical absence of the Guru, take refuge in the scriptures. Study them, reflect them until they become your own personal knowledge. Guru is the embodiment of knowledge, hence his every word and gesture is filled with pure wisdom. So can you imagine that knowledge is not just by having a textbook and reading from the textbook. If there was a Guru here, if the Guru just glances at you, raises his eyebrows, he's communicating something with you. He's either agreeing with you or trying to convey some message to you. So even gestures and symbols, facial expressions, that in itself is also kind of part of this, the knowledge of scriptural knowledge. That, he could communicate with you without saying any text, and he's trying to say something to you. So symbols becomes an integral part of this form of knowledge different from knowledge described earlier. So Matignan and Shrutjnana. Now, the first thing is Matignan, so which is the mind and the senses, can only comprehend the present. So your mind and the senses. So someone can argue that I actually do have memory. I can remember things from the past. Oh, I have imagination. That's a function of the mind. Memory and imagination is a function of the mind. True, but that could be erroneous. Your memory could fade. Oh yes, I do remember like something like this. So that cannot be clear knowledge. You do have memory, or you have imagination, but it could be fuzzy. So the only knowledge which can be valid knowledge is the knowledge now. If I tell you what's the color of this podium, you can see it now and you can actually see it now. But if you were relying on your memory, you say, was it this color or that color? Or you could even, if you think in the future. So the actual valid knowledge is the knowledge from the mind and senses is the present knowledge. So that is only valid knowledge. You can vouch it. Yes, this is what it is, and I can see it. I can understand what the knowledge is. So Matignan has the domain of the present knowledge only. Matignan does not have conclusive knowledge for the past or the future. Shrutjnana has that capability. So Shrutjnana has got the capability of giving us the knowledge of the past, the present and the future. So what does that mean? That we mean, so someone like Gautam Swami or all the elevated souls who have now got Kevalgnan, so they, and those, their words have now been condensed into scriptures and we have got utmost faith there. So that's the reason why we then start believing that Bhagavan Mahavir says, what was your previous life? Or what's going to be a future life? What's going to be your future life? So when he says that, we then have got utmost faith in what has been said. So that knowledge can capture knowledge of the past, the present and the future. What's going to happen in the future. So that's one big distinction. Shrutjnana can capture the knowledge of the past, present and the future, whereas Matignan is only here and now, only the present. Now the second part is, out of all the 5 types of knowledges which Jainism talks about, only Shrutjnana is communicative knowledge. What do I mean communication? I can communicate to you. Matignan, your mind and your senses is your own knowledge. You cannot communicate that to me just by itself, just by Matignan. If you're feeling your mind and your senses, it's your knowledge. It's what you feel. And you need some kind of verbal language to communicate that to others. So that's kind of the domain of Shrutjnana. So all the other 4 kinds of 4 knowledges, Matignan, Kevalgnan, even if Bhagavan Mahavir has got Kevalgnan, that's his knowledge. It's not your and my knowledge. And then he has to use verbal knowledge to communicate that to others, which is then becomes part of the Shrutjnana. So out of all the kinds of knowledges, all the 5 kinds of knowledges, only Shrutjnana, only Matignan, only Shrutjnana is communicative, all the others are personal knowledge, self-knowledge. So that's a big difference here. So that's the second difference between Matignan and Shrutjnana. Now let's again look a little bit deeper between Matignan. Now what is Matignan? On the chart there is soul. Soul lekoche, so you can see it. It's written in Atma lekoche, and you can hear it. If I say soul, so you can hear it. So that is the domain of Matignan. You've seen it, you've heard it, and that's basically where it stops. That's where Matignan stops. Now you start thinking Atma, soul. What is Atma? Think about the connotation. Atma ekle su, mar sharir judu che, mar Atma judu che. When you're thinking the deeper meaning of the word soul, that now becomes a domain of Shrutjnana. So by soul in itself, that's just nothing. It's just letters. You bring anyone here and saying soul or anything else. It's just pure knowledge. It doesn't make any difference to you. But it's that reflection on that. What is soul? What is meant by soul? If you look at the chart, obviously it's a very, it was not meant to be read. Jai Acharya, there's an Acharya who is now given different characteristics of soul. Atma Ajar che, Atma Amar che, Atma Avinashi che. And you think deeply about the qualities of the soul. So now that's getting in the domain of Shrutjnana. You're understanding the essence of it. Another example. This is sugarcane. So sugarcane, so you can see this is sugarcane here. You can if it's written there sugarcane, you can read it, you can write, you can hear about sugarcane. Now, how many of you have had actually sugarcane juice and seen? One in Kingsbury, if you've gone there during the summer months. Sugarcane sugar se, machine ma muk se, and then the juice comes out. Then again in a pacho fold karse, again puts in the machine, and then gets the juice out. So yes, getting the essence out of the sugarcane. So the essence is that. So that's a Shrutjnana. Otherwise, sugarcane is sugarcane. But do you see how we just extracting the juice out of it? You're munching over the word soul. So the analogy I'm trying to make is you're munching soul, atma, suche. Atma, if you just read it, it's just Atma. But Atma, Suche, any other concept, and when you're thinking about it, you're contemplating about it, that becomes Shrutjnana. Otherwise, it's just pure sensual knowledge. So that's a very big difference here, Kiki. You are now extracting essence of it. Okay, and another example is that if Shrutjnana is so powerful, then how is it different from Kevalgnana? So a person with Shrutjnana can know but cannot perceive. So if I've got a book here, an Agam, which describes about everything about Atma, it goes over the past and the future, but it's not my personal experience. Whereas a person who has got Kevalgnana, the ultimate knowledge, that's his personal experience. The person himself can say, I remember the past, I know the present, and I can see the future as vividly as I can see the present right now. So that's a personal experience. So this becomes an indirect knowledge. Another very important distinction, if you read through the scriptures, a very common distinction comes in direct knowledge and indirect knowledge. What is direct knowledge? Direct knowledge means I'm reading this and I'm getting direct knowledge from here. And what our understanding could be indirect knowledge means you read something and you've passed on that information to me. So that's, we believe in indirect knowledge. But in the terms of spirituality, direct and indirect has got a very different connotation. Direct knowledge means knowledge gained from the soul. And indirect means through any other means but not through the soul. So it's the exact opposite. So a direct knowledge would mean, in the categories of 5 types of knowledge, Manaparignana, Kevalgnana, and Avdhijnana. So those are you get those kind of knowledge, we'll look at it later, through the purity of the soul. So those becomes direct knowledge, and Matignan and Shrutjnana, these are not, it's not due through the purity of our own soul, so that becomes indirect knowledge. So in the scriptures, Matignan and Shrutjnana is an indirect knowledge, and all the other 3 types of knowledge, which is through the purity of the soul, then that becomes direct knowledge. Important question, do plants and animals have Matignan? So plants and animals certainly do have Matignan. So, and why do plants have? Because it's either knowledge through the senses or through the mind. And we all know that, at least if nothing else, even plants have got sense of touch. Ekindriya, Beindriya, Treindriya. So at the very least, that at least, so they do have sensual knowledge, plants. But do they have Shrutjnana? Can plants have Shrutjnana? I mean, it's a kind of an absurd question. Can plants read scriptures? And so how can they actually have Shrutjnana? Do you think so?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
When you communicate to them, that means that they are listening to you.
Any proof?
What you think.
Any proof?
Yeah, well, if you plant a tree, if you talk to them nicely, that cases where they actually grow properly.
Right. Now, I mean, obviously I'm getting towards it, that the answer is yes.
Shrutjnana, I'm asking you, would that mean Shrutjnana or would it mean Matignan?
Yeah, I'll say. So it is Shrutjnana, and let's look at it why. Now, domain of Shrutjnana is not only scriptural knowledge but communicative knowledge. So if anyone is using any forms of communication, that becomes Shrutjnana. Anything which is communicative knowledge, it becomes. So if you can say, if you look at it at a very superficial level, we can say Shrutjnana is knowledge through the scriptures. But if you really look at it very deeply, Shrutjnana is not only scriptures, but it's communicative knowledge. Any knowledge by which you can communicate with one another. So Shrutjnana is acquired through interpretation of words, objects, and gestures. Now, if you Google, you will actually come to 3 different pieces of research which I came across. One was a research by scientists at Kyoto University, and they showed that lima bean plants send out distress signals to protect themselves and warn neighboring plants of an impending spider attack. So if a spider is going to be attacking some plants, they are going to be sending some kind of signals or chemicals in the air and warn the other plants that there's going to be a spider attack. Be careful. A second research which is done. Someone clipped limbs of a sage brush plant. So, ab nail cutter hoy, so you go to the plant and you just take a nail cutter and you're clipping the leaves of that plant. To mimic the insect eating the leaves. So, the insect bite karto hai, so you just go with a nail cutter or something and just start. Plants release volatile chemicals, methyl jasmonate, which wind carried to neighboring tobacco plants who increase the defensive agents, so leaves tasted wild to the insect. They now created some kind of secretion, so that leaves now taste not very nice. So when the insect comes to bite it, so they'll say, these leaves are not, they don't taste too good. So that's communicative knowledge. So now plants they're sensing something and they're using this and passing it on. A third piece of research done by Cleve Baxter, CIA agent of America, CIA agent. When he retired as a CIA, he was very much into doing polygraph, detecting the kind of the vibrations given out by plants. So he had a polygraph. And if a gardener who's tending the plants, he's looking after the plants, watering the plants, is next to the plant, the polygraph has got a very nice reading. Then comes a woodcutter, and he now looks at the polygraph reading, and it just shows that the plant is now getting scared. This guy's a woodcutter. So the vibrations of that woodcutter, the plant is sensing it and sending out. And when himself, what he found is that how did he get interested in this particular field? What he found was that whilst he was using this machine to experiment, he cut his finger and he was bleeding. And out of his blood, he found that the reading on the polygraph was showing that the plant was being sympathetic towards him, that he's bleeding. So maybe he interpreted it in such a way. So he saw the reading was a certain reading, and then the reading changed, and to him it showed that the plant was being a bit sympathetic because now he's now bleeding. So and then he did more research. So these are you can Google them. They're kind of official research papers, and which now shows that plants do have some kind of communicative knowledge. So the answer is plants do have Shrutjnana. That the Shrutjnana is not in terms of the scriptural knowledge yet, but they do tend to communicate. It's a communicative knowledge is there. So plants and animals, they do have Matignan and they have Shrutjnana. So we have established that all the other forms of knowledge they may not have, but at least all forms of life have some element of Matignan and Shrutjnana. Okay, so now let's look at, so in a generic sense, Shrutjnana means scriptural knowledge. So that is kind of the bigger picture. That's what Shrutjnana, the common definition, if you ask anyone, what is Shrutjnana? The general definition means Shrutjnana is knowledge of the scriptures. And so from Jain's perspective, what are the scriptures? What is Shrutjnana for Jains? Now, the first definition is that the Jain literature, the Jains believe in 14 purvas. What are the 14 purvas? આપણે નવકાર મંત્રમાં આપણે જ્યારે ગાય છે સમરો મંત્ર બલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પૂર્વનો સાર. So એ છે 14 પૂર્વનો સાર. So what is નવકાર મંત્ર? It is the essence of the 14 purvas. And the 14 purvas are 14 ancient texts. We have got no records of them, but through through the oral tradition, we've now captured in the scriptures, there were some kind of 14 ancient texts. So 14 texts prior to the Agams, maybe Parshvanatha time or even more ancient, but there were 14 texts which formed the core of the Jain, the essence of the Jain philosophy was contained in them, and so those were the 14 purvas. But we know nothing about them, so we only know that they existed. But now what do we have currently is from two perspectives. Shvetambars then have Agam, Upang, Chet Sutra, Mul Sutra, and then Chulika Sutra. So what they've got this, the Agam body is divided into such that you've got let's look at a human body. So you've got a main limb. I've got my arms, I've got my legs. So those are the main limbs of the body. So you've got 12 main texts which form the core, the core Agams. Then you've got the Upang. So there you can have all these different texts there. So those are like the fingers. So all these different texts. So you've got the main body's legs, you've got the arms, then you've got your toes. So the Upangs will be the subsidiary limbs. So those are the kind of the subsidiary agams. Then you've got all the other Chet Sutra and all the so in essence that becomes 45 texts. So according to the Shvetambar tradition, that if you add them up, they'll actually be you can see that from the Agams, Drishtivad is now extinct. So out of them, so in essence, we actually have only 45 texts from the Swetambar's philosophy point of view. From the Digambar text, you can see that they've got the Agams. They do not believe in all the sort of vast diversity which the Svetambars believe in. And so this is their kind of classification here. But what's interesting to see in the Digambar text is that Tattvartha Sutra becomes part of their core text of the Agams. And even in one of the others category, the Sarvatra Siddha commentary on the Tattvartha Sutra. So it's not a Tattvartha Sutra, but there's actually a commentary on this book that also becomes part of their core spiritual text. So you can see that Tattvartha Sutra is a very, very core important text, especially for the Digambars. And this text is, I think Vinod mentioned earlier, it's believed by both, but Svetambars and Digambars. So it's a kind of a unified text, but for the Digambars it holds special value. So in conclusion, for all intents and purposes, so Shrutjnana, from our point of view, is all scriptural knowledge. We don't then say, oh, Agam che, Shrutjnana. For us, any spiritual book, any positive thinking book, it can be classified as kind of Shrutjnana. Anything which can make a difference in our life and improve, or make us go on a spiritually upward progress. Another kind of general division for the Agams is that when you look at the Agams, that they are divided into two broad divisions, Anga Pravista and Anga Bahaya. So, and the definition means that any text, spiritual text, which was written by, or which was actually given out by, well, Bhagavan Mahavir just uttered the words, and then Gautam Swami and Sudharma Swami and many of the later acharyas who actually had, in the 14, we said the 14 purvas, so in the classification, people who had 10 out of the 14 knowledge, they were supposed to know enough knowledge, and if they wrote something down, that becomes the core Agam text. So anyone, so Sudharma Swami, the Ganadhars, so their knowledge is infallible, they've got extensive knowledge, and that becomes part of the Agamic literature. Any other acharyas, if any acharyas writes the literature now, who do not have all these extensive knowledge, then that becomes Anga Bahaya. Bahaya means external or extra. So that's basically the broad division. So how does one classify that this is an Agam text or not? Well, Agam text is either written by the Ganadhars of the Bhagwan or learned acharyas who had enough 10 out of the 14 knowledge of the Purvas. So that's how one divides the Agam. Now let's look at this. So what are the characteristics or qualities of intellect necessary for acquisition of Shrutjnana? What do we need? So the first thing is, આપણે કેટલા બધા છે અહીંયા serials જોતા હોય છે કે સાંજના serials આવતો હોય છે. Is there a certain desire કે આજે કોઈ મહેમાન આવવાનું છે કે આજે નહીં આવતા? Like just yesterday, we had some guests at home and છોકરા આવીને કહે છે કે can you please go to the other room? We are looking at apprentice was coming through. So we actually had to move across because that was something of interest. And similarly here, so there's a desire. The desire is the first thing. So obviously the first thing is that we generally have desires. Picked up the talk shows, serials and the talk shows, and we spend so much time for those kind of things. So the first criteria is, do we have the desire first? It's not even reading a book. The first instance is, do I actually have the desire to read something? So it's not actually reading the book. I spend 10 minutes reading a book here. The first instance is actually the desire. And so once the seeds of spirituality within you blossom, so seeds of spirituality, then you become very desirous of listening to spiritual matters. So if something kindles within you, otherwise, well, many of you here are dedicated, you come to the classes here, but for many others, you really need that change. Others, why come and spend a Friday afternoon here listening to, Friday evening and listening to talks here? Or many of you time in your own spare time listen to YouTube, so many other spiritual matters which come along. So there, first of all, has to be a strong desire. The second question is repeated questioning. And it's almost like becoming like a child. Why this, until it starts eating your head. Came. And so that's the second reason or second parameter of the Shrutjnana, that you really need to start questioning. Why is this? Why is this? And that actually will then increase your desire. I need to find out more about this, find out more about this, and I want to read more about this. So the second criteria is repeated questioning. The third thing is hearing, actually hearing. You're actually making an effort and going and listening to someone. The other thing is grasping then. And after you listen to many things, then you understand what's going on, and then you start grasping. I mean, there are so many people here who say, okay, we've come from Africa or we come from India. Initially, we knew very little. And then if you've been coming here for 6 months or a year, you say, oh, I've been so much padhe che. So the more you've done it has to be your own experience to find out that what you were 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and what you are now, no matter even you say, but even today, you will actually be in a much better place than what you were many years ago. I'm not an expert to this level, yeah? But I do have some knowledge. And it is just purely through grasping, slowly and slowly. Then comes inquiry for any doubts. And then you go and ask. So it's kind of a repetitive back and forth process. And eventually comes a conviction. And that's a very strong part. That there are many things which comes through. This is, mind and the logic will not function, then it's my conviction. It's my faith. And I think, and from our own personal experience, what happens is that there are so many things. What happens is that if you look at the scriptural knowledge, you've read a little bit and this much part makes sense. And if this much part makes sense, then you will, by extrapolation, will say, I actually believe in the entire scriptures. None of us have seen how is the Jain universe, nakla heavens, nakla hells. But you say, look, I have got the faith that this other part must be true. And that's kind of an extension of that. So then that conviction comes in, that I really have got the faith in it. Then retention. So you gain the knowledge, and then when is that knowledge going to be right? And I think that's a very important part. When is that knowledge going to be useful at the right time? And eventually it will become right action. So, and this really is a key point. Samyak darshan, samyak gnan, and samyak charitra. So when the knowledge has become right, has become true, then samyak charitra. The knowledge then has to come follow through. Then you'll have the right action. Okay, so we now discussed the Shrutjnana. So now we go into the next verse here. So if we again start decoding, what is this saying? Bhav, Pratya, Yo, Avadhi, Avdhir, Narakanam. Anything which we can decipher from our basic knowledge of Gujarati? Any words? Devlok. Narak means hellish beings. Avdhi. Yeah. So there is some linkage between Avdhijnana, between Devs, Dev and people in the hellish beings. So what is also very interesting is, the more you read the scriptures, I'm not even an expert in Sanskrit, but just through our basic knowledge of Gujarati, the more you do, you can start picking the essence of these scriptures. Because sometimes you look at this and say, oh, this must be rocket sciences. And then if you start slowly going even into the root, because the essence will really come from you. And we are actually quite lucky, because who knows in 30-40 years time whether our children will be able to do this. They'll just look at English translations, but that's why I believe that having that basic knowledge of Gujarati or Hindi makes it that you start getting essence, because you cannot do a direct translation of many of these words into English. So this sutra now describes the third type of knowledge, which is Avdhijnana, clairvoyance. And we'll look into what does that mean. So again, as I said, it's a very scientific approach. So what is this scripture saying? Avdhijnana. Avdhijnana can be of two types. It could be bhav pratyay. So you can see, right, the first one is bhav. So Avdhijnana can be through a bhav pratyay or gun pratyay. So what does that mean? How can you get Avdhijnana? How can you get this kind of knowledge? You can get this knowledge through two means. One is a bhav, which is inborn. And how can it be inborn? That you're just born with this knowledge. And who is just born with this knowledge? Two forms of beings. In Devlok, all angels, Devyo, they are born with Avdhijnana, and hellish beings. So they are also born. It's an inborn. You don't have to do anything. Like when we're born, we just straight away automatically started to breathe. No one taught us how to breathe. So, or like a bird, When a bird is born, who taught a bird how to fly? Automatically, as soon as a bird is born, it just starts flying. So that is bhav pratyek, it's inborn. It emerges directly and immediately. And gun pratyay. Gun means someone who's got that quality. You've now done so much spiritual matters, and your soul has progressed spiritually, and we that have now acquired that knowledge. It's not automatic, but you've acquired. So through spiritually elevated souls can get this Avdhijnana. So let us understand what is Avdhijnana. So we discussed earlier the difference between direct knowledge versus indirect knowledge. So Avdhijnana is through the purity of the soul. So that comes in the domain of direct knowledge. So Matignan and Shrutjnana are indirect knowledge, whereas Avdhijnana, Manapregnan and Kevalgnan, the other three, are direct knowledge. So according to Jainism, there are three planes of supernormal consciousness. Approach consciousness, there are three kinds of. So Avdhijnana means I've got the capability to look at material objects only. So Athena, if I had Avdhijnana, and depending on how powerful my Avdhijnana is, I can see in Kenya or in Harrow or somewhere far away from here, any material object, I can have that knowledge as vividly as a book lying here. So I've got that knowledge of any material objects, and it's important, it's a material object. So that object I can see. So gana manto ke jara astrologers paase jai ke mane khabar chhe tamare your house is under the bridge here, ama jhad chhe, tamari baju aam chhe. So they can describe that very, very clearly. So it's limited to material objects only and not necessarily connected to spiritual aspirations. We have already seen that Narak ma je chhe ne Devlok ma je chhe, they're automatically endowed with this Avdhijnana. So someone who has got this knowledge does not necessarily utilize this knowledge for spiritual matters only. Athena, for example, if someone is in the hellish beings, and through that knowledge, when we were in earth, you did this to me, so I'm now going to harass you, I'm going to torture you. So ilogani knowledge to check karu ke te mane aam kiru tu, you did some things to me those many years ago, so I'm now going to be harassing you for this. So they're not utilizing it for a spiritually positive way, they are now using it from them, but they do have that knowledge. It's also found in animals and humans with purity of soul. Animals and humans. Mana Paragnan, it's knowing the other's mind. We'll come to that later. That's the knowledge after this. And Kevalgnan, which you know all material objects and immaterial objects, material and immaterial. So that is ultimate knowledge. And you know that simultaneously. Now, I'll give you three personal examples of sort of what I would. Now, what's important to believe is that someone has got Avdhijnana. How do I know that koine Avdhijnana change? For example, audience ma, how if I do not know anyone of you here, how am I supposed to know who is a doctor, medical doctor here? Koi tame uniform to payroll, you don't have a doctor's coat here. So is there any way I can know if anyone of you here is a medical doctor? There is no way. I can only know if something happened to someone here, collapsing and someone gets up, then you look through the action. Okay, this person actually knows what he's doing. There's a medical emergency and this person is actually doing something. So through inference you can know, okay, this person must be a doctor or he's got some medical knowledge. So when people have got Avdhijnana or Manapregnan or Kevalgnan, Bhagavan Mahavir Swami has said, do you think if someone says kind of Kevalgnan thank you? I mean, okay, in the pictures you can see probably there's a halo behind him. Who knows whether he had a halo or he didn't have a halo. But through inference, people can say, Manas Pase, after he got his Kevalgnan, you could then, through directly or indirectly, make your conclusion that this person has got enough knowledge or amazing knowledge. So basically what happens is that there is no way, you can only observe it or infer it indirectly, not directly. You cannot say, I can now see that this person has got Avdhijnana. So it's through an indirect way. So I'll give you three examples. There's an example of a dog here. Now, this is my personal example. In February of this year, youngest son Yash and I went to Girnar for a jatra, 1 week jatra. Now, as we are coming down from Girnar mountain, so Yash was actually a bit scared about dogs. I mean, niche uttarta tha, to dog hato, so Yash was getting a bit scared. So, we were trying to hush away the dog. Dog ne jato rahe. So the dog would not budge. He was just slowly just stepping down. Then we asked the dolly people, can you please ensure that our dog ne kene jaldi yahi jato rahe, just take the stick and make it. And the dolly person says, the dog's not going to go away. I says, why? What's his dog? Because the dog je che, he's actually waiting for his companion, which is black colored dog. He has upar che, and this dogs every day jatra kare che. Every single day, these dogs are doing jatra of Girnani, and he's now waiting for his black companion. Ne aram thi ke tame roz every single day upar jatra karse ne niche jatra karse. He kai nahi kare. He was not barking, he was not doing anything. He was just going along in his own peaceful path and just going along and say he's going very slowly because he's actually waiting for his companion to join him. Now would I from my point of view, I think, how does that dog know? It's another form of Avdhijnana. The dog does not say Avdhijnana che, but my guess or I would infer that this dog probably would have Avdhijnana. It has got that knowledge, some connection with this place here. And I'll also tell you the same trip, why I feel that. Each trip in the evening, we met a Sadhu Maharaj. His name was Hempalap Vijayji Maharaj, Hempalap. And this Sadhu Maharaj, what has he done? He's taken a lifelong vow, that every day mare ambel karvano and every day I'm going to be climbing the Girnar mountain. So that Sadhu, we met him in the evening. I asked him for a photograph, but he said, no, I won't let you take a photograph with me. They didn't want. But he's taken a vow that until my last breath, every single day I'll be doing ambel and I'll be climbing the Girnar mountain. And I asked him that why Girnar, why not Palidana? And he said that according to him, and it's written in the scriptures, that right now we have 20 Tirthankars who have gone to moksha from Summit Shikhar. In the next cycle, the bulk of the Tirthankars are going to go to moksha from Girnar mountain. So he says that I've got such a strong feeling that I now want to be. So can you imagine that if somehow this dog could have been a monk like that, and he might have taken a vow like this, and that's such a deep connection. So the dog might have that knowledge of Avdhijnana, and that's the reason why the dog is doing that. A real personal experience which I had with this dog. Second, a few years ago, we actually went to Mumbai, and there is a Jatrani place, Shahpur. Anyone been to Shahpur? It's about 100 kilometers away from Bombay. And there, Parshvanath Bhagwan Derasar che, and even Nag Baba che. They call that they're snakes. And the snakes, there is a temple of Parshvanath Bhagwan, and the snakes come there. And now the snakes are by nature poisonous, or people get worried about them. But if you, the picture is not very clear in there, but if you blow it up, you'll actually see a snake there. There's a snake crawling. And what the snake does is, it comes and pays its respect to the murti and the murti kare, and a lot of the people here are just sort of paying respect to the snake. So as you can see, a snake, your own nature, inherent nature is one of anger or like poison, everything. And here it's a very docile snake, just coming from, I took that photograph and just passing through and paying the respect to the Bhagwan, respect kari, and just passing through. Then you would say that this kind of snake has got Avdhijnana. And the third and the final example is 2012, we went to Kerala. And we went to the Kochi Derasar. There's in Kochi Derasar. And what in fact actually even read on the internet, that is something very special, and a lot of foreigners actually go to the Derasar there. What is very peculiar about this place, the story is quite long, but in essence what it does, during lunchtime, the priest comes and kabutar ne chokha muke for the eating. But before they do that, what happens is, he comes along in the compound, like apne majanwadi ma kina khawa mato dung kokare with a plate. So he'll do it 3 times. Kabutar, and hundreds of them, even thousands of the kabutars, they're not eating anything. And then they will actually, dome they will turn around 3 times. Pradakshina karse, 3 bar. So they will actually do 3 times, and all, not just one, all of them, like you'll see in a circle on the picture. 3 bar pradakshina karse, pachi, they manglik bolse, and then they'll start eating the chokha and kekare. And here, in fact, here you can see that we were reciting the Nauka mantra, they were eating the chokha. Now you can imagine that this kabutar must have something in them to say, okay, what makes them feel, there are some pradakshina karu, and pachi khao. Even in India right now have taken a vow, in India a lot of people take a vow, darshan na karu, Many people in villages or in India have the no karsi keru se ke જ્યાં સુધી ભગવાન દર્શન ના કરું ત્યાં સુધી I don't. And you can say this is not just one, but hundreds of kabutar doing this. And you can say that this is Avdhijnana. At least, you know, you'd feel that they've got some innate knowledge within them to say, you know, karu છે. Because, you know, how can you explain these things?
Would you say Atma is the Ucho?
You would think so, ne? You would think so. That it is some kind of, otherwise, you know, after all we'll say that the animals છે, you know, otherwise, I mean, kutrano શું હોય ભસવાનું છે આખો દિવસ, very calm, docile, and just going along its own path. So there has to be some effect. So Avdhijnana is the capacity of the soul to know all the objects or objective things. Very important. They cannot read your mind. So Avdhijnana, I cannot know what you're thinking, but I can think about the objects. તમારા ઘરે કઈ ગાડી છે, તમારા ઘરે શું છે, so anything objective, material, it's a knowledge of Avdhijnana and not in the domain of fear. So
would you be able to actually see the color? For example, say you know that somewhere around that line is an orange outside.
Yeah, so I'll come to that. So we'll come to the next sutra. There is a gradation of the purity of the Avdhijnana. So depending on how powerful your Avdhijnana is, sometimes it will be fuzzy, and if your purity becomes very strong, then it's as clear as the chairs here.
To the extent that you can even know the taste?
No, because that's personal. You can only infer what the objective is. Taste is the taste, I mean, that's difficult. Orange, mango, whether it's sweet or not, I'm not sure whether that. But you can see that orange. Taste is a separate sensation. But you can know carry pedi. So, and knowing irrespective of temporal and spatial distance, very important. So, irrespective of so temporal means time, past, present, or future. So, irrespective of them, you can have this knowledge of the objects or space. But if he's in the next room, I do not know. But then you could be able to have that knowledge. Past as well as the future can be perceived as vividly as the present. You can imagine those things as clearly as you can see this here or the chair here. So let's look at the next one. Shayopasham nimittah, Shayopasham nimittah, Shada vikalpa sheshanam. So Shayopasham nimittah shad. Shad means cha. 6. Vikalpa seshanam. So how does the acquired avdhi occur? What are the different forms of Avdhijnana? Okay, so I think in the interest of time I'll go a bit quicker. Okay, so Avdhijnana can be of 6 types. So Avdhijnana, now the next sutra is saying Avdhijnana keva type na hoy. One is anugamik. It stays with the person wherever they go. It's so for example, a t-shirt, I dye kareelu છે a t-shirt. So if I now go into the next room, the dye of this t-shirt is still going to follow me in the next room. So this knowledge goes wherever the person goes with. It's like a doctor. A doctor if the doctor goes into the other room, the knowledge of the doctor goes with him. It does not mean that doctor in surgery ma check tyare doctor છે. And if he goes home, then he's not a doctor. So the knowledge of which the doctor has follows with him. So anugamic is, and if it's the opposite of that, means that it's only our place ma hoy to જ મને knowledge છે. હું અહીંયાથી આ બીજી રૂમમાં જાઉં તો that's the next one. So the next one is anugamic. Maybe there's a purity of this place here. If I'm in this location, exact this place, મને બધું ખબર પડે શું છે મારી પાસે Avdhijnana. But the moment I go to the next place, that is it's gone away. So anugamic means restricted to certain areas. So another example is I asked what are the directions of Canton? But take you away, what are the directions in Vietnam? You wouldn't know what are the directions there. So your knowledge is restricted to this place here. You know about Canton area very well and Hero area very well, but the moment you're put into Vietnam, you'll say, I'm lost. Directions here. So your knowledge is restricted to a certain location. So that's an example. That this knowledge of is that Vardhaman is increasing. So what it means this is increasing. Knowledge I can So that knowledge is actually increasing. Or even donation. મને અત્યાર સુધી ખાલી આ next room સુધી જ મને દેખાય છે. પછી I can now even see 2 rooms across. I can see 2 miles across. So it's actually increasing. So that knowledge of the it's increasing. So it's like a fire. Matchstick તમે કરી છે. So અત્યારે એનો brightness આટલું છે. Then you go to the fire, forest fire, and then it's just increasing. So you can see the glare. So it's the whole forest fire. So that's how it could be. It starts very small and then it can become very expansive. Hiyaman, the exact opposite. It starts very wide and then it starts decreasing. So you've got so much knowledge and maybe your purity of soul is then not great. You start getting ego. Okay, તમે કંઈક બોલા આવી ગયા, આહા મને તો શું knowledge છે. Then it starts decreasing. You had all this wide knowledge of knowledge and then it's now coming low. So that's so it's over. So get low brighter and then it's reducing. So the next one is avasthit, steady, continues till the end of one's life or subsequent lives. So it's steady, avasthit. Okay, आज माने knowledge है, it's steady and even maybe continues to my next life. And avasthit, unsteady, increases or decreases, exercisable at some time, so it's very erratic. हमला છે, हमला નથી. So these are the six types of the knowledge of this knowledge. So I think at this stage, we've heard knowledge speaks, wisdom listens. So I've been doing all the speaking. So I think you guys are the wise people, and I've just done the talking. So I think we've got about 10 minutes left. It would be nice if each one of you just takes one and just reads through these couplets. It would be nice just to see some very nice quotation. Most of them are from Rakesh Bhai. They send kind of daily quotations. And I've just picked up the ones which are quite relevant to knowledge. So why don't you do this? Just start off from here and then just go across the room and just read through. And some of them, if you find interesting, we can discuss them. But otherwise, any comments on that? So it would be nice. Just start with the top one. Yeah, the first one. Can you read?
So what is it? Satsang helps to acquire knowledge. Its main purpose is to kindle bliss within. Do satsang to elevate and connect to the divine.
Yeah. So I think satsang is very very important. Okay, what we're trying to do is sometimes knowledge ekla karta hai, you don't understand this, but kind of in collective, this satsang actually helps, and this is prevalent in amongst all faiths. So whether it's Rakesh Bhai's group, or whether you look at Sheila Piji, Sadhviji, that kind of the group collective, that dynamics makes a big difference of exchanging ideas and understanding. Next one.
Know that your knowledge has become your belief if it appears to you as
At the right
time.
So that know that your knowledge has become your belief if it appears to you at the right time. જ્યારે right knowledge હોય તો when it's going to become very useful to you, then you say હવે knowledge પૈચું છે આપણે કે ને knowledge હવે પચી ગયું છે હવે. Otherwise it's just not knowledge state. You're like ઓલા કે ને પંડિત જેવા છે.
Make your knowledge and faith strong, as they alone will bring force into your practice.
આપણે કે ધગસ જોઈએ. Yeah.
Jignasa.
Yeah.
Your only sadhana is to stay stable under all circumstances with the help of the knowledge given by your Guru.
I think that's really the essence of Jainism, which says samta bhavana. After in whatever situation comes along, can we remain in that equilibrium state?
Check your spiritual state, not by your dry word knowledge, but by how you responded to situations.
It tests your kashais.
Do not blindly believe. Understand the truth well. Right knowledge with conviction will save you when attacked by delusion.
I think that I found this very powerful. Even in the Acharan Sutra, the first Adam, the Acharan Sutra, it says, do not follow it blindly. use your own intellect. And it's very, very, very powerful saying, okay, whatever it's been taught to you here, don't just follow it. You test it, you apply your intellect. Does it make sense? Do I need to follow it through? Otherwise, it's not. So really, you really need to understand the truth well. Does it make sense? Then you're just following it blindly. But you really need to understand it well.
Also, it gets stronger that way.
Yeah.
Your belief, it will just like one of the things like you said, sometimes it starts increasing. This,
right?
Once it starts increasing by itself. Like you start seeing it in different things.
Yeah.
Have faith in the knowledge of the omniscient ones, remain free from worries and desires for change.
Do you agree with that? Or?
Yes, yeah, very much.
I think eventually this almost, denotes also of destiny. Just carry on with your efforts and sort of, remain free from worries and desires for change.
Just as a lit lamp is needed to light an unlit one, you need a living guru to light the lamp of knowledge within you.
Yeah, that's also very important. I think the emphasis of having a guru. Okay, in the absence, okay, if you don't have a guru, then we rely on scriptures. But the impact which a living guru has of understanding, I think it shows the importance of having a real guru.
Lamp is lit.
એટલે પોતે જે આપણે કેન્ડલ છે એ પોતે જાગેલા છે અને પછી તમે કેન્ડલથી you are lighting another candle, so that person has got the knowledge and using that same one to light someone else. Now similarly તમને થોડું knowledge થઈ ગયું છે તો you can now lit a lamp to your children, whatever knowledge you've got, and then so it just carries on.
એક દીવાથી બધા દીપ માણસથી.
Like lipstick, do not let your knowledge remain at the level of your lips only. Let it go deep within to bring about a transformation.
Not from experience.
Very good.
Manji bina lipstick le aata.
That is what you preach.
Knowledge is knowing what to say, wisdom is knowing when to say. Satsang nourishes your knowledge, devotion and dispassion. Listen to it wholeheartedly.
Introspect
minutely and apply it regularly to see the difference.
How do you explain that?
I think it's
Satsang
really-
is the knowledge, devotion, and dispassion.
Nourishes.
Does it?
I would summarize this like Gandhiji's experiment with the truth. You've listened many things, but then he experimented with the truth himself. He contemplated on certain things, Mahatma Gandhi, and then he introspected minutely and applied regularly to see the difference.
Oh, when it says dispassion, does it mean?
Passion in the sense, you because on the spiritual path, not like gain. આમાં ફાયદો થાય છે તો હું કરું. આમાં કે ઘણી વાર આપણે કહે છે મારા બિઝનેસમાં મને ધંધો થાય છે હું કરું. પછી you forget it. Dispassionately, it's like under all circumstances, when you got a spiritual drive within it, then it's not conditional.
Human beings are very strange. They have ego of their knowledge, but they don't have knowledge of their ego.
The faith is readiness to accept the truth. Daily practice of this knowledge will help you destroy ignorance.
The stronger one shall always win. Which one is stronger in you? Your knowledge or your ignorance?
Mere knowledge makes you dry. Mere riches makes you lifeless. Devotion
unto the Guru is supreme. It brings both knowledge and disciplines needed for your growth.
Mere bookish knowledge is incapable of removing your delusion. Focus on experiencing the knowledge.
You are the light of knowledge by which world is known. Just recognize yourself to be the knower present in every activity. This is very good.
If you have a heart problem, you couldn't.
Yeah, I think it's a bit, if you have a heart problem, you consult none other than a cardiologist. Then for your self-knowledge, why do you hesitate to surrender to the Sadguru? So yeah, I think just trying to emphasize that. Yeah, you can't read that. A seeker is like a moth who rushes enthusiastically towards the Guru to burn his egoic identity in his flame of knowledge. So just show the disciple, they really just go to the Guru and whatever the Guru then says, totally submits.
Seek not knowledge alone, but a transformation through it. Knowledge can be borrowed, but progress can never be.
It's true.
I think there's some more to at the top.
The two faith and the stronger one. Faith is ready.
So, yep, okay. Quick, a few more minutes, 2-3 minutes. If anyone finish off the line? I don't know, where do you go to? No. Yeah, practice moving illusion by using the chisel of right knowledge and hammer of discrimination. That's broken. Idle discussions and dry talks will not be helpful. I'll just read a few more and then I think, can you read these to yeah?
If a man empties his purse into his head, no man can take it away from him. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. Thank you.
Anyone? Can you read anyone? Anything it is right?
Only true wisdom is in knowing that you know nothing.
That's okay.
That's a starting point.
Just now from it?
Even the top one is very nice to say the wise man never knows all, only the fool knows.
Not even that one by G.B. Shaw. Beware of false knowledge. It is more dangerous than ignorance.
Okay, so I think we can conclude today's talk. So this out of the 5 forms of knowledge, we've done Shrutjnana and Avdhijnana, and sort of next lesson we'll talk about the remaining 2 forms of knowledge, Manaparajnana and Kevalgnana. And then we got one more last lecture, which will just talk on Nai, which then completes the chapter 1. And then next year we then go to chapter 2.
All working on television brings people's mind. Would you say that's what
Wonderful.
Only the tricks.
I mean, if they are illusionary tricks, that's fine. The experience shows that people who generally have these kinds of knowledge is through spiritual elevation, and they sometimes don't tend to utilize it that much. So if you can go to India and you can find astrologers, they may have it, but in the strictest sense, like it is a belief that many of our Jain acharyas could have this kind of knowledge, but then they would not use it. They might use it for certain things, like there might be a drought. Sadhu Maharaj ne kai problem thawano hoy, through their knowledge they might say, let's avert this bigger problem. So in the ideal sense, but as we saw, okay, Avdhijnana it's not necessarily can be used for only good reasons. You could even use it for negative reasons. So if people do have that knowledge and if they do it, so it is possible. So these kind of people, if they do have the knowledge, whether it's tricks or illusion, as I said, this kind of knowledge no one can really know. You can only infer it through certain ways. So this they've been doing it on a TV show, but whether they have it and you put them to test, you go in front of him saying, can you please tell me mara gharma શું છે કે એ છે? And if he describes, then you can say, yeah, he has got that kind of knowledge.
Did you say original knowledge is also linked to past and future as well?
Yes, yeah, future માં આવી રીતના
Which means something an hour ago, and you remove it, you could actually know it was there.
Yeah, how to past માં હતું ને આ future માં ઓલી રૂમમાં પછી ખુરશી અહીંયાથી ઓલી રૂમમાં જશે.
Okay, so you know the future as well. It's going to be there as well.
That's right. Yeah. Past, present, and future. But objects.
Yeah, objects.
Just objects.
Yeah. Very powerful.
But it's all to do with the purity of the soul. And people, if you have true spiritual knowledge, you will never misuse it. If you're doing it on a spiritual quest, and your purity allows you to have this knowledge, you will never use it to demonstrate to people what your capabilities are, or you will never use it.
I mean, even Acharya Channaji, if you look at the movie, there are quite a few instances in her life where things seem to be almost next to impossible, and things turned out to be worked out in her favor. So, you know, many of these spiritual leaders do have certain forms of knowledge, and you know, it's no surprise. So, you know, sometimes people say it's magical, but what this shows is that yes, it is possible, and people can have it. And ઘણી વાર કહે છે કે આપણે અંજાઈ ના જવાય. So we don't get that much. Oh, that's it. Yes, you do have that knowledge, and we do recognize it, and so it enhances your faith, but it's not doesn't become like a blind following, and so it is possible. Yeah, person is an object. Object is fine. There's a big distinction between mind, કે તમે શું વિચાર કરો છો, કે anything which is abstract, which is more સૂક્ષ્મ, કે very minute feeling હોય, કે એ બધા ના થઈ શકે. It's objective. આજે anger થયો, કે તમને આજે jealousy થઈ, that's not an objective thing. કે આજે oh yeah, I know that you were jealous 5 years ago, you were angry, so that cannot be done. That can even mana parajnan, mind that can come. That's because that's not objective. But Kevalnan is everything. So everything is Kevalnan. So Kevalnan is ultimate knowledge. That's right. Yeah. So when we come to the next topic, it's mana parajnan. So that really focuses on the mind, mental thoughts. So and different from the objects. Jai Jinendra.